really excited today about the Lunch and Learn. We have Paul Moore from Wellings Capital has been a great supporter of Left Field Investors from the beginning, and we appreciate that. He is going to be our keynote speaker a week from tomorrow at the meetup in Left Field 2022, which we're super excited about. So thank you, Paul, for that. And today, Paul is going to be talking about investing in RV parks for fun and profit, as you can see on the screen. I'm really excited about this. This is a new asset class. I don't know much about it. We've heard little bits and pieces here, but Paul's really going to dig into it. And the way we'll do this today is Paul will go for about 40 to 45 minutes, I think. And then if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. You can raise your hand. It's usually easier on Zoom to kind of put those towards the end. But if you have a pressing question, I'm sure you can jump up and down and wave your arms, and Paul can stop the show for that question. But otherwise, we'll hold them to the end. And with that, I'll turn it over to Paul. Thank you so much for coming to Left Field and giving us this great Lunch and Learn.
Hey, Jim, thank you so much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Well, I'm Paul Moore, and yeah, I love this asset class so much. I thought I would just change the name from investing in RV parks, which sounds kind of boring, to investing in RV parks for fun and profit. So hopefully we'll have a little bit of fun here today. I've written 3 books on real estate investing. I'm the co-founder of Wellings Capital. We're a fund that invests in about 6 different asset classes, including self-storage, mobile home parks, RV parks, multifamily, outdoor shopping centers, and light industrial. Married for 35 years here in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, Lynchburg specifically, got 4 kids. So this is a disclaimer saying that we're not promising anything, we're not representing any results, and that we are good guys, I guess, something like that. So it's funny to be here because I was first a little bit known in the bigger pockets world, at least, for a book called The Perfect Investment, which is a seriously humble title, don't you think, Jim? And it's a book about multifamily investing. And you might wonder, why is a guy that talked about multifamily investing so much talking about RV parks now? Well, I went on a journey, and I promised my dear wife, after chasing shiny objects for decades, that I was going to stick with multifamily investing and syndication for good. But I did not find as much success in multifamily as I thought I would. I found that it was getting way too overpriced, way too popular. And so I got really concerned, and we first expanded into self-storage, and I thought it'd be good to write a book on that while I was at it. So I did, and that was published by Bigger Pockets last year. And I am thinking about writing a book on RV park investing, but we'll see how that comes off. So I was a residential real estate investor for years, and I wondered over the years, hey, how do I get involved in commercial real estate? And why do so many wealthy and successful people seem to be involved in commercial real estate? In fact, almost all the Forbes 400 wealthiest Americans, including this guy, are involved in some way in commercial real estate. Well, Jeff Bezos is one of the top 3 or so wealthiest people in the world, and he knows the power of $1. And the power of $1 in a vending machine is what I want to talk about for just a minute here to exemplify how commercial real estate works. So Jeff Bezos, one of our investors at Wellings Capital, was an executive with Amazon. And he said that Bezos went around and he removed the light bulbs from all of the vending machines in all the Amazon offices and facilities around the world. I wondered why. Well, he didn't think it was necessary to advertise Lance Snacks, that little, that thing at the top of the vending machine. It used electricity. It used a light bulb. It used a maintenance person's time to change it out, and it just wasn't necessary. Bezos knows that $1 saved in electricity or a light bulb every month really matters, because here's how it works for him, a publicly traded company. So Bezos, if he saves $1, that's $1 a month. It was $12 a year. $12 a year is added to the bottom line income. But stocks have something that you all know called a price to earnings ratio. And it turns out that the price to earnings ratio for Amazon has been about 120 over the last several years. Well, if you just take let's assume it's just 100, $12 saved a year or added to the bottom line results in $1,200 in value for Jeff and his shareholders. Now that's big money. That's basically like a 1% cap rate, by the way, if you want to translate to commercial real estate. But commercial real estate, as most of you already know, works very similar. The value is the net operating income. The value of commercial real estate, or the value change, is the net operating income, or the NOI change, divided by the cap rate. So $1 saved or added to the NOI is $12 per year. Mama always told me I was good in math, Jim. And if you take that $12 per year divided by a 6% cap rate, that converts to $200 in asset value. But it can be even better than that, because if you're using leverage, and a typical leverage is about 66%, that has a 3x impact on the equity. So a dollar saved or added to the bottom line is a big deal. And this is just demonstrating something that almost all of you probably know, and that is, in commercial real estate, you can force value. Now, I'm not going to go through this next slide in great detail, but I'll tell you that here are some examples of saving a dollar or a lot of dollars and what it translates to in commercial real estate. So for apartments, let's say you had a 100-unit apartment complex, 20 vacant units when you bought it. If you can fill 15 of those, that's at $825 a unit. That's $12,375 a month added to the bottom line. That's great, but that's $148,000 a year. Divide that by a 6% cap rate. You just added $2.4 million to the value of that apartment complex. And in some cases, you might have only put like $3 million into that deal. So you almost doubled your equity value just by filling 15 vacant units. Another example, in a mobile home park, you could save $35 per month by converting the water bills from being paid by the company to the individual. And that would translate to $875,000 in value, or raising the lot rent by just 5% across 300 mobile home park spaces. That translates to $900,000 in value, which is, I mean, huge. Negotiating a cable or internet deal, $625,000 in value. Spending $100,000 to add paid outdoor storage. A mobile home park I know added a 1 acre paid outdoor storage, translates to $9,000 a month in income, but almost $2 million in value. And he only spent $100,000 doing it. If you're self-storage, you can add U-Haul for $3,000 a month. That translates to $36,000 a year, or $600,000 in value. Point of sale items, that works, you know, for self-storage at $1,000 a month, translates to $200,000 in value. Adding insurance and late fees, things like that, across 800 storage units translates to $800,000. So this is a big deal. This math thing is a big deal. But we're not here to talk about self-storage and mobile home parks today. We're here to talk about investing in RV parks. So we're going to get back to this later, but here's some photos from some of the RV parks from one of the operators we have invested in, and we've been in some of these parks. My wife and I stayed in one of these parks, and we're going to talk more about that later. So why RV parks? Well, it's something I kind of looked down on for years. I mean, when I thought about it at all, there were some RV parks. There are some RV parks near me at Smith Mountain Lake in Virginia. I didn't really think it's something that I wanted to invest in. I mean, campgrounds, RV parks. I'll tell you about my cousin's RV experience later, and not something I was really excited about, but it has rapidly growing demand right now that far exceeds supply. We're going to talk about that. There's already been a long-term trend in RV park investing, but it's been accelerated because of COVID. It's highly fragmented. There's over 8,000.
Nice, right? Yeah, understand.
Oh, okay. Highly fragmented. It's got over 8,000 privately owned RV parks, and they're almost all owned by mom and pop owners. There's a couple big players, Sun and equity lifestyle, Sun Communities and Equity Lifestyles, and those are REITs, but almost everybody else is a mom and pop or a small operator, which is a great opportunity for investing. Sort of feels to me like self-storage was in the early 90s, or mobile home parks maybe 10 years ago. Now that's just my opinion. That doesn't mean it'll really turn out that way, but it is recession resistant. We'll talk about that. Provides a safe and affordable vacation for people worried about pandemics. There's a long runway for growth. There's a lot of rural land out there, and that's where they work best. And there are significant barriers to entry. So this all sounds good, but what about some facts? Well, let's talk about some facts. Here's 10 facts about RV parks. RV ownership has risen 62% since 2001. Now check out these next two. A record 11.2 million US households own an RV, but 9.6 million say they want to buy one in the next 4 years. One of the reasons is because it's, for many RVs, not the big expensive ones necessarily, but for many, it's like adding a car payment. I mean, a $25,000 RV with a loan on it, it feels like a car loan, maybe even not an expensive car loan. And so a lot of people are doing this. And you've probably looked around your own neighborhood, or maybe you have decided you want to try or buy an RV, and there's ways to do both. 26% of campers were new to camping in 2020 during the pandemic. Now think about that. That's a huge increase over 2019. In fact, it's a 5x increase over what was the record rate of new campers in 2019. Between 19 and 20, over 6 million households started camping. KOA advanced deposits are up 63% this year over 2019. And we're going to talk about two huge reasons for that in a little while. One study showed that RV camping is 47% cheaper than a similar car hotel vacation, and 62% less than an air hotel vacation. And I've got all the footnotes toward the end of this presentation for all these stats. Online searches for RV parks doubled in the last decade, and they've experienced continued growth since the great financial crisis. Now, this is a slide I was able to get from a company called Great Escapes. Now, this doesn't compare everything I wish it did, because this compares RV park camping during, and I'm focusing here on the great financial crisis, but compared to multifamily, compared to office, retail, industrial, RV park camping is the only one that didn't have growth below zero. In other words, it had positive growth during the great financial crisis. This slide's kind of interesting. This shows the frequency of camping from 2014 to 2020. It went up from 32 to 48 million. But check out this one time per year group here. It went up from 5 million to 13 million between 2019 and 2020. And then 21 and 22 have been even higher. But that one-time thing is really interesting. That just shows, again, people are dipping their toes. People are trying this out. People are checking it out. And the stats from 2022 say that this has just continued. Now, a few minutes ago, I mentioned on this slide that 11 million people have an RV, but 9.6 million more want one in the next 4 years. The question is that even going to be possible? The answer is, I don't think so. Look at the historical RV sales data. In 2021 and 22, we've got a record 1,000 RV sales. If you talk to the RV dealer in your community, you'll probably hear the same thing that I did, which is they have a massive backlog on certain types they just can't get. It's sort of like trying to buy like a Genesis car right now. You can tell I'm in the market for a car. You can't get one hardly at all. They're so popular. Well, RVs are very similar. And so the question is, won't this constrain the RV park growth as well? I mean, if 9-point-something million people want one, but only 650,000 a year can get one currently, will it constrain the business? I don't think so. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute. This is way back in 2018. People were so frustrated trying to get an RV space at a park that they did all these different things like camping alongside the road, changing the date of their trip, decide not to go camping at all, went on weekdays instead of weekends. This was before COVID and before something else that's even bigger than COVID, I think. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. Now, something I was worried about when I looked at the RV park industry is, hold on, gas prices are through the roof this year. I mean, gas is up. We all know that. And I thought, well, these RVs, my neighbor down here has this, I think it's a $300,000 RV. What's he get, like 2 miles a gallon? I was surprised. That's not true. Check out this average motorhome gas mileage chart. The Class C, the real big ones, they get better mileage than my Toyota Sequoia. Maybe I should trade in my Sequoia and drive around town in a Winnebago, Jim. I don't know. But seriously, they're not as bad as I thought. In fact, what's been borne out this year since gasoline prices went up is RV usage has continued to go up as well. And again, there's other factors there. One factor is the fact that, my car gas is going up too, and so is airplane fuel. I paid twice as much, more or less, than I paid 2 years ago to fly to Alaska this summer to go fishing. And my flight, I mean, it was literally, I think it was over twice as much. But, pandemics, gas prices, all these temporary things does not translate to an industry. I mean, if I have to count on a pandemic or a COVID-2, or where are we up to now, 4 or 5, whatever, if I have to count on that to make my investment thesis, I'm going to be seriously disappointed. It sounds like speculating to me, something that I personally don't like to do anymore. But there's something else that's happened. It's much, much more important to this industry than a pandemic. It's interesting that it coincided with the pandemic, and you all know what it is. It's this. It's a first in world history. I'm sure of that. It's the first time that a significant percentage of people who always were chained to their desk at work can now work remotely. And this statistic from McKinsey & Company says that 35% of people can remote work full-time, and 23% more can go part-time. And that translates to about 91 to 92 million people who can now hit the road. And a lot of them have. They're not all going to go in an RV, but a lot of people are working from home now. A lot of people are working from the road. And what's happened to coincide with that is, I think COVID has made a lot of us, including my family, rethink our priorities. Hey, we're not promised to live for 100 years. We're not, I lost a couple close friends during the last couple of years, actually 4, and 1 directly from COVID. And a lot of us started thinking, hey, am I living the best life I wanted to live? Or am I postponing it till I'm, 65 and have a pension or whatever my dad told me to do? A lot of people are saying, you know what? I've got freedom and I can do this now. And I've got the money to do it now. Like my friend, Chad Corbett. Now, some of you might've heard of Chad Corbett. He owns a residential real estate company that provides leads for real estate investors, quite successful. This is Chad's rig. Chad decided during COVID, he said, I'm going to rent my brick house in Roanoke, Virginia out to somebody, and I'm going to hit the road. He bought this RV for $48,000. He made significant improvements to it. And now this is a picture of him from an RV park. He's been out on the road off and on for the last 2 years since COVID. I asked him if he could show me like what the inside of this thing looks like. He's modified it. He spent a lot of money to modify this. This is his working desks. He and his traveling partner both have desks that drop down and allow them to work from the road. He's got all his podcast stuff set up there. Everything he needs is all set up. But when he wants to hit the road, he loads his dirt bikes inside. He turns it from office mode to garage mode, and he hits the road again. And, Chad's not typical. He's kind of an unusual guy. But there are a lot of people out there who have a similar mindset, a lot of people who are hitting the road and using RVs to do it. Now, there are 4 types of RV parks, and I want to go over those real quick. So first of all, you've got overnight and campground parks, and that's the kind you might, be most familiar with. Second, there's extended stay parks. Third, there's workforce housing, which you might not have known about, but I did because of my time in North Dakota. And also destination parks, which is what I'm personally investing in right now. So let's go over these 4 real quick. The overnight campground park is basically designed for people on the move, people like Chad who are on the way somewhere, maybe on the way to Branson, Missouri this week, and he might have 2 stops on the way. They're only spending a night or 2. They don't need a whole lot of amenities. They're not there for vacation. They're on the way to their vacation or their destination. They're typically near highways, and they typically don't have a whole lot of amenities, like I said. So that's an overnight campground park. The second type is an extended stay park. Now, you guys might make fun of me, but my cousin actually converted a school bus to an RV, basically to a camping RV, converted a school bus, and he put it down with the decks and the steps and everything at an RV park in southwestern Ohio. I didn't say he was a hick. You guys should stop thinking that, okay? But seriously, he converted a school bus, and he did that permanently. So a permanent place, an extended stay. There's a lot of these at Smith Mountain Lake in Virginia. People just pay every March for the whole next year at a time. They stay for a long time. That includes snowbird people, like another friend of mine from Seattle who sold his house. Now he has an RV. He goes back and forth between Virginia and Florida, depending on the season. Unfortunately, the affordable housing crisis has also caused this type to really ramp up, because some people can't afford to even live in a mobile home or mobile home park or an apartment or a house, and they live in an RV park. And some of us know people who have done that. This is a picture of a real nice, I'd say, extended stay park. If you look closely, you'll see these folks have decks, and they're there to stay probably for decades. Now, a little known and little important, less important type of RV park is the workforce housing RV park. When I was in North Dakota, we built a hotel that we operate as an extended, a multifamily facility, operate as an extended stay hotel for workers in the oil field. But there was also RV parks that sprung up. One had, I think it was like 1,100 spaces right down the road from us in Watford City, North Dakota. It was full of construction workers, oil field workers, travel nurses, etc. And I'm going to throw this in just for a little bit of fun. These people, when it got to 40 or 50 below with the wind chill on top of that, this was RVs were not a comfortable place to stay. So somebody had the brilliant idea in Watford City there to do an indoor RV park. I'm not kidding. This is an indoor RV park, had room for hundreds of RVs, and people would camp right inside these big, like, warehouse type structures. Anyway, that's workforce housing. The fourth type, and the one I like best, is a destination park. Now, these are they're catering to people who are going somewhere for a nearby vacation, places like Branson, Missouri, that have a lot of attractions, or Gatlinburg, Tennessee, or a national park, or they are the destination. And that's the ones I like best, because when they are the destination, that means they're adding things like pools and water parks, swimming, fishing lakes, mini golf, dog parks, trails, hay rides, face painting, gem mining, all kinds of things that are, by the way, almost all those are value adds as well. They have human foosball. They have these big safe trampolines. They have all kinds of things. They have a drive-in movie, kind of a makeshift drive-in movie place. And these RV parks are awesome. And they have Whibbits. Jim's wondering what I'm talking about. I'll tell you later. Now, this is an example of a destination park we just invested in Leesburg, Alabama. And you might wonder, isn't that way out in the sticks? Yeah, it is. It's way out in the sticks. But it's only 2 hours from Atlanta. And it's only an hour and a half from other big cities that have, I would guess, thousands of potential RV campers. Look at this. I mean, it's a place you can go during a pandemic or not, and you can, you know, have your own space. You don't have to go to a hotel, but you can, you know, you can enjoy these amenities like this water park and all this other stuff. Some of these RV parks, these destination parks, cost $3 million to buy from a mom and pop. But they have, like this one, I believe, has $17 million in capital to finish this out. And it's pretty powerful. I was telling my son, who has a lot of land here in the Blue Ridge Mountains, I said, why don't you start an RV park? And then it occurred to me, wait a minute, that's bad. I mean, if anybody can just start an RV park, isn't that going to provide a lot of competition? The answer is, yeah, potentially. It also means you and I can go start one. I mean, we could, you know, get a little bit of land in the, you know, flatter part of the mountains and maybe set up one. But I got to ask myself, and I got to ask you, am I really going to compete with this guy? No way. Am I going to spend $17 million? This guy's got a team that has been together for decades. The operator of this one has an experienced team. He's been doing commercial real estate with investors since 1992. So he's been at it 30 years. And he's, you know, it's just somebody I'm not going to compete with. And by the way, like I said before, he's got Wibbits. Now, Wibbits, this is a floating obstacle course. And so just to give you a kind of context here, my wife and I went to Fort Worth, Texas earlier this year just to do due diligence on this operator. And we stayed in this park that has a $600,000 lake and a beach added. And then Wibbits. Now, Wibbits are about a $200,000 to $300,000 floating obstacle course. And they charge $17 an hour for kids or adults to hang out on this obstacle course. $17 per person per hour. You can see how many people are on there. It translates to a value add opportunity of up to $1,000 per hour. Up to $1,000 per hour in the summer months. You can do the math on that. It is a huge revenue opportunity, but it's not the only one. There's all kinds of other stuff at these parks. So I love these parks, and I love the fact that there's so much popularity in the RV park space. And I love the fact that 11 million RVs today, there's a demand to, you know, for that to grow to, you know, up to, you know, what is it, 20 million or so in the next 4 years. But there's something else that might be just as powerful as the fact that people now can work remotely. There's something else that's combined with that to make the RV park realm even better. And I'm going to land the plane in a few minutes, but I wanted to hit on this, and I call it the X factor for RV park growth. What is it? Well, here's a hint. Airbnb. You probably know the impact Airbnb has had on the hotel industry. It is massive. I mean, Marriott's been around for almost 100 years now. And Marriott, in the second vertical bar here, has a little over, I think it's 1.4 million total hotel rooms. Look at Airbnb. It's about 4 times as large, and it's only been around for about 15 years. And you can see the other hotel chains there as well. Airbnb has had a massive impact on the hotel realm. We all know that. Another massive impact is Uber. Uber and Lyft have had a massive impact on the taxi business. In fact, it used to cost over $1 million to get a license to drive a taxi in Manhattan. Now it's only $80,000. And I literally feel so sorry for the taxi drivers who paid $1 million and, you know, leveraged everything to get that taxi license. And now their business is so far down. You can rent cars now on Turo. And I've done that. I went on vacation in a Turo car. You can rent boats, you can rent tools, and you can even rent clothing. Yuck. That just doesn't sound very appealing to me. I don't know what you think, but anyway. There are companies like RV Share, Outdoorsy, and others that actually are using the same model for the Airbnb sharing model for RVs. And I was really happily surprised because I don't plan to buy an RV. It's just not something I would do, but I would love to use one. Well, think about it. Now that you can turn your RV into a rolling rental unit, you can do what one of our investors did. I had lunch at the Bigger Pockets conference with one of our investors the other day, who informed me that she and her husband bought an $84,000 RV about a year ago, and they've already made 46 or 48,000 free and clear profit on it this year in Colorado. They've already made 40-some thousand dollars in profit on an 80-some thousand dollar RV. It's powerful. And she's taken an RV that would have probably sat idle for 350 days a year, and she's got it out on the road and out at these RV parks, hundreds of days a year, maybe 100, let's say 150 days a year instead of just 15. That's 10 times the usage of that one RV. Can you see the impact this could have on RV parks and their investors? It's powerful and it's real. You combine that with the fact that people can work from home now, and with the fears about COVID and just the general feeling in America that, people want to camp more, it is a powerful time to be in the RV park industry. I skipped one there, wheelbase. I'm going to talk about that next. So I was worried about some things when I went to rent an RV. First of all, I wonder, well, what if I get in an accident? How do I get insurance? Can I even get insurance? What if my leased RV breaks down? I don't know how to fix it. What if it's in a remote location? And I'm intimidated. I'm as intimidated about, my wife, of course, said she was intimidated about driving a large rig across the country. Not me. I was concerned about the setup of the RV. Like, what if I had to connect a sewer line or something? Ugh. My wife said that. I was worried about all this stuff, and I didn't know, I literally was wondering, do I really want to rent an RV? Well, that's all covered now. Outdoorsy and RV Share and a partner company called Wheelbase do this for you. They actually provide insurance. They have 24-hour roadside assistance. They will, if you want them to, you don't have to drive it. They'll take it, Wheelbase will, and set it up on location. All you have to do is show up. And so if I want to book, an RV in Branson, Missouri, which is one of the ones we invested in, if I want to book an RV there already set up next week, I can do it. Well, no, I can't, because there's no spaces. And that's the problem. My neighbor down the road here has one of those like $300,000 Winnebagos. And he said he has to book his spaces a year or more in advance. It's kind of sad when you think about it, because the people who love RVs probably in general love being spontaneous. And this is making it hard. The supply and demand on RV parks right now is, it is so out of whack. And especially, and this is just my opinion, for these destination RV parks. So let's quickly look at a sample RV park operator. And this is the one I mentioned earlier. This is one we're investing with. This RV park operator has been in business since, he has no losses. He's been in business since like 88. He has no investor losses since 94. The VP of this company grew up in an RV park and actually has overseen RV park operations across the country. They acquire these assets at well below replacement costs. They do all kinds of value adds. I mentioned, taking a $3 million park and turning it into a $17 million basis park. They've got an in-house engineering team, in-house construction team, and they're projecting cash flow in the mid-teens. Now, we all know that cash flow in general from a lot of commercial real estate assets are, generally 5 to 10%. I'm talking about just the cash flow. They're projecting in the mid-teens or even in the 20s at the asset level. And most of that obviously flows down to their investors. The IRR projections are over 20% at a 7.5% somewhat conservative cap rate at the asset level. This operator does all kinds of enhancement. I mean, they rent golf carts for $75 and they're booked up almost all summer for $75 a day. They have dog pens that, they'll rent you, you can pull up next to a doggy pen for like an extra, I think it's like $60 a day just for the doggy pen that costs $1,200 to install. They got dynamic pricing like hotels. They got glamping units, Wibbits, merchandise sales, food service, all kinds of stuff. So we really love this destination model. One thing we love about it, and think about this, if you buy a multifamily asset, on the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio, let's say in Dublin, it's going to be pretty hard to expand it. But think about these RV parks. They're out in the middle of the sticks, and you can often buy one and easily buy wooded or farmland around it for a very low price and expand. This one is one we invested in. It's expanding from 61 to 161 camping spots, and it's doing all the other stuff I mentioned as well. So this is an example of this operator. This is not my company, by the way. We're investing with them. This is, you can look across that 2021 year-end results here and see that one of their parks, is up 18% after 41% the year before. This Mississippi one that we visited was up 89% in 2020 and then 17% more. And then these two newer ones in Texas were up 73% each in 2021 over the acquisition price. This is a picture I already showed you. This is this destination park we invested in Alabama. And so I thought, just so there's no confusion here, I thought it'd be good for me to end by just telling you a tiny bit about what we do. We're not an RV park operator, nor is Wellings Capital self-storage or mobile home park or anything else operator. We have a fund that invests in a lot of other folks' deals. So basically our Wellings Real Estate Income Fund is our sixth fund. We are basically set up for investors who need a low to mid-teens tax shielded return, and they're unwilling to take the risk and have the hassle of doing it on their own. Our fund provides diversification across different asset classes, geographies, operators, properties, strategy, and time. We utilize rigorous due diligence to find the best of the best operators that we can. We generally invest in recession-resistant asset classes, providing the opportunity for passive income, appreciation, tax benefits. We have annual audits. We make monthly distributions, at least we're projecting that. And we share everything with our investors. Our target returns are 5 to 8% net cash yield from operations and a 12 to 15% total annual return. If you want to learn more, you can visit us at wellingscapital.com. We're going to have an RV park special report out likely by November. You can email Alyssa at wellingscapital.com to get that. You can also get on my calendar if you want to chat, or you can just call us up. So that is pretty much that. If you get a copy of the slide deck, you can see where all my sources are. And I am ready to answer any questions you might have. Jim?
Thank you, Paul. That was great. Appreciate that. Sometimes the group is a little bit shy to start, so I guess I will ask the first question. And just for reference, I am one of those people that went camping in 2020. We rented a motorhome using Outdoorsy, and it was really interesting. The guy delivered it to our house for an extra $50, and then he spent, I don't know, 30 minutes or an hour explaining how everything worked. And then, my son was doing online school at the time. So we just hopped in the motorhome and took about I think it was a 8 or 9 day trip around the Great Lakes. So it was a lot of fun. But the question I have is,
Wow.
And you kind of mentioned a little bit of this, but are they building, this isn't like mobile home parks where, demand is going up, but they're not building any more parks. They're actually getting rid of parks. RV parks, are they able to build new ones? It would seem like maybe the land is inexpensive, but all that stuff you were showing on there, like the 17 million, that's an expensive build. So are there opportunities for development here, or is it all just buying the mom and pop units?
No, that's one huge difference between mobile home parks and RV parks. So the risk in the mobile home park arena is government intervention, I think, like, eviction moratoriums, or basically saying, look, you can't raise your rent control. That's in the mobile home park space. In the RV park space, I think the risk is having competitors pop up nearby and eventually having, eventually I think supply and demand will equal out. And that's why I really like destination RV parks. I don't know many people. I only know one person, in fact, one operator who would take the risk of building out a giant project like that.
And how many operators are there out there? I mean, it's a struggle to find someone that's, running a syndication where you can actually invest in this, but you hear a lot of people talking about it. So how many operators do you know of? And they're all, I assume, buying them from mom and pops and then doing the value adds?
Yeah, it's interesting. So of the 83 or 400 independent RV parks out there, I think 90% or more are owned by companies that have four or five or less parks, meaning usually mom and pops. I don't know the answer to your question. It's hard enough to get information on mobile home park owners. It's real hard. I think it's even harder to get information on RV parks. That's why I mentioned in the, the email you sent out the other day, you and I got together on that a few weeks ago and said, RV parks are a little bit undiscovered.
Yeah. And that's a great place. I mean, with all the uncertainties that we're dealing with now in the economy and other asset classes, finding something like this where there might be a chance to really make some returns, because it's, as you said, demand is increasing, supply is, you might have some of these mom and pops who own it for 30 years. Maybe they don't have that much debt at all. You could do some kind of seller carryback loan. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities, it would seem, for those. Is this something, I mean, aside from the financials, are individuals buying any of these, or is it mostly just commercial operators?
I would think so. So like I mentioned, my son buys land and timber here in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. And I mean, I think that, if you go to some of these websites that show, that like Outdoorsy or whatever, that have RV park sites available, some of them are primitive. I mean, you literally just pull up the RV and you stay there and they charge. It's like a campsite that has no amenities, no water, no electric, no anything. And he's got a bunch of land he could do that on. So I've got to believe some other people are thinking that way. I have no proof of that, but we've been looking into this business for years, and we've only found 2 RV park operators that we would feel comfortable investing with. That doesn't mean there's not dozens more. I'm sure there are. We've only found 2.
And we have one question, but before we do that, I'd like to ask you another question from me is, what kind of due diligence, or how do you vet a sponsor or a syndicator of these? Because, I mean, you mentioned someone who had, 20 years experience, which was very surprising to me. I wouldn't think there'd be operators out there unless they're like the mom and pops you talked about, but I'm talking about actual operators, syndicators that we can invest with. How do you vet them? What kind of due diligence are you doing?
Yeah, I need to give you full disclosure on that. They've been in the commercial real estate space since 1988. They've had investors since 94, but they've been in other asset classes. Even that operator, they're such an amazingly strong operator. I mean, I believe that the owner, who we have met with and talked with many times, I believe he's like 100x millionaire. Like, I mean, the guy's putting millions of his own money into these deals. But I mean, he's only been in the RV park realm since the teens. In other words, he hasn't been in it for 30 years. He's just been in commercial real estate for years, just to be clear. But yeah, we have a 27-point checklist, and it's very similar to what we do, how Wellings Capital does due diligence in general. We see how much skin they have in the game. We see about their track record, their team. By the way, he has this lady who grew up in an RV park, and she's been one of the top people in the country for, she's been at it 20 years, since 2002. That team member, that's critical. She's their chief of operations. We look at their loan, how they get their loans, how they get their debt. We look at their acquisition pipeline. We look at, you know, what they've done when things went south in 2008 or whenever time in the past things went south, how they reacted and how they performed. We look at dozens of other things, including on-site visits, discussions with their current investors, discussions with their lenders, you know, CPAs, etc. Those are some of the things. I mean, you guys know, and I mean, Jim, you and I have talked about this before, but Brian Burke's book, The Hands-Off Investor, is the go-to manual for vetting syndicators in any realm.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great book. So a couple questions about the fund. Chris asks, is Wellings Capital a fund of funds?
It is, in the sense that we're investing in portfolios of assets with other operators. And so, you know, some people, you know, would rather not invest with us because, I mean, seriously, you guys at Left Field are way more knowledgeable than the average investor out there. But I mean, if you can, you know, if you have the time and the money and the resources and knowledge to dig in and find these deals yourself, you don't necessarily need us. Well, unless you want the diversification and the fact that we've done all that due diligence. I mean, somebody can invest 50,000 with us and get a piece of potentially 10 different operators over 6 different asset classes and let's say 100 deals. And so that's one of the main reasons to invest with us. Oh, plus we get better terms that offset our fees, but they don't always, but it often offsets our fees with individual operators. But yes, it's a fund of funds.
Excellent. And what percentage of the current fund is allocated to RV parks? And what percentage do you aspire to have in this fund or the next fund?
So funny. That's a great question. You're the first. Whoever asked that was the very first person to ask this, and I've done.
That was from Stan.
Thanks, Stan. We have I'm going to give a little disclaimer here. We love self-storage and mobile home parks. We have, you know, way more experience in that arena. And our plan at the end of the day is to have, let's say, 30 to 40% self-storage, 10 to 30% mobile home parks, 10 to 30% RV parks, and then a little bit in each of those other 3 asset types. That's our plan right now, because a couple of our mobile home park and self-storage operators are paused. They're not taking funds. We have 33% right out of the gate. We put 4 million of our first 12 million or so into RV parks. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Are there any other questions for Paul about RV parks or the Wellings Fund or anything else? Excellent. Well, it looks like you covered everything, Paul. And if people have additional questions, as you can see on the screen, you can reach out to Paul. Or if you are coming to the meetup in Left Field next week, Paul is going to be on a panel and he is going to be the keynote speaker. So we're super excited about that. And Paul, again, thank you so much for, oh, we do have one more question. Okay, so Gary asks, of the RV park owners or operators in urban settings. So I guess the question is, are they some in urban, some rural? Can you kind of give a breakout of that?
Yeah, I don't see many in urban settings, but you all, I mean, everybody here lives somewhere other than Lynchburg, Virginia, and you've been to different places, and you probably, there's probably some exceptions. I mean, I've literally seen mobile home parks. I know that's different, but mobile home parks right in downtown Chicago. I don't mean like the center of downtown, but right in town. And I've seen them in Louisville, and we've invested them in other cities. But RV parks, I can't think of any in urban settings. If somebody else has seen them, please like throw it in the chat box, because I'd love to know myself. No one's ever asked me that, and I don't have a great answer. Well,
that's right. That's why you come to Left Field. We have all the questions that are coming out of Left Field, right? The original questions. So that's fantastic. Yeah. All right. So that's the last question. We will close up. Again, Paul, I want to thank you. This was fascinating because, you know, I still am chasing shiny objects. I try to restrict myself, but this is one that I really am intrigued by and I'm very interested in. So I appreciate you coming on. And again, we're looking forward to next week. We will see you then. And for those of you on the call, we hope to see you also next week in Columbus. But thank you very much, Paul.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.